Dobar dan iz Budimpešte, imam veliko zadovoljstvo da je sa nama danas Simona Kerselom iz Holandskog foruma za demokratiju, gospodina Thierry Baudeta, ona je narodni poslanik. Imaćemo zadovoljstvo da razgovaramo danas sa Simonom o svim novim temama koje se tiču savremenog konzervativizma. So, Ms. Kerselom, please be welcome to the Serbian public and could you be so kind to tell us what is exactly Forum for Democracy, which kind of party are you, for how long have you been in political scene, because we see that you and Mr. Thierry Baudet are very active and you are bringing something new in political space.
No, absolutely. Well, we were in the Netherlands. We are a conservative political party, but we are somewhat different than most conservative parties in that we are trendsetters. We are very firmly founded on an ideological basis of freedom, and it's also one of the reasons why our response to COVID was so intense. We saw it was a conspiracy right from the start. But what we as Forum really want to achieve, we are a patriotic party. We are anti-globalist. We believe, that nation states are essential to the survival of European nations, of the people of Europe. We are pro-Nexit, so we are anti-EU. We love our country, and that's what it comes down to, and we want to fight for it, but in a way that we are seeing, sort of these cultural Marxists, the progressive liberals as we see them now. They are fighting a very aggressive fight against conservatives. And traditional conservative has always had this idea that we need to pull back. As long as we leave them alone, they'll leave us alone. And that's not what is happening. They want to impose something on us that we do not want. And it's time for conservatives to stand up and let their voice be heard. And that is what Forum for Democracy has done. And we do that without any apologies. We believe in something, we say it, and even if that causes such havoc, and we are opening up a space for discussion, and I think that is sort of essential to what our party is doing in the Netherlands.
Thank you so much for this answer. What we can see is that you are answering all the contemporary challenges, so you are doing in the most, let's say, modern way, but at the same time you are bringing this old-fashioned conservative style, bringing aesthetics into politics. In the speeches of Mr. Baudet, he's always on the side of the beauty. He's talking about architecture, philosophy, and all the forgotten things from Joie de Vivre that we lost. Could you bring us this topic a bit closer? How actually do you see the contemporary world?
Well, and I think one of the most important things that we have forgotten, how essential beauty is to the human soul and to the way that we view life. I don't know if you've been to Brussels, to the EU Parliament there. It is a type of Babylon. You can't get a grip on the building, and it somehow it's dehumanizing. And that is, of course, the idea that they want, that if we don't feel at home, if we don't recognize ourselves in the buildings, in the architecture, if we don't see beauty there, then who are we as a people? It is a way of uprooting people by not allowing them to ever recognize themselves or feel at home. Because I think it was said very beautifully in one of the speeches yesterday that by Viktor Orban actually, that people without a home are the toys of the globalists. And that is exactly what it is. If you don't have a home, if you don't have a sense of family, then of course you've got nothing left to fight for. Then you are just as happy living in Budapest as you are living in Tokyo, or it doesn't matter anymore, because there is no home base. But architecture and beauty is one part of that. And the modern world is taking that away from us. And I think that's one of the reasons why Thierry Baudet is very active on making sure that we are reminded of how essential beauty is to our experience as human beings, to feelings of nation and of belonging.
That is wonderful to hear, to bring this kind of philosophy in political space. There are some concrete issues that we're talking about lately. One of them is child protection. Could you tell us more about this promoting sexual education, these alternative orientations and everything? Could you bring us more? How is it in the Dutch system, and what is your point of view regarding the matter?
Well, for me personally, that is one of the biggest topics that I'm keeping myself busy with at the moment. Because, of course, in the Netherlands, we are looking at what is happening in the Netherlands with our children. Our children are being deliberately targeted with sexual content. This is happening in schools, in society, and of course, if you resist it, you're a fascist, you're homophobic, you're anti-transgender. But it's happening to children as young as 4 years old. They are being taught about masturbation, about pleasure in sex. We are sexualizing children who shouldn't have these. Children are innocent, and it is up to us as parents to protect that innocence. In the Netherlands, we even have television shows where transgenders stand naked in front of children and talk about their transition and how wonderful it was for them. Transgenders and transvestites reading books to children. Why are we doing it? I see it as a Disneyfication of this whole transgender, this trans activist agenda. Because if you're going to have small children, so you put them in front of drag queens who are dressed as beautiful princesses, which child is not impressed by that? But it is an active attack on the family, of course. And I actually wrote a very interesting piece about that for our international, for Democracy International. I call it Bearing the Nation. And it's a two-pronged attack that you're seeing from the progressive liberals and from the gender theorists, from trans activists. First, of course, the men have already been demasculinized in the Netherlands. We have a very feminine male population. The next attack is on women, and that comes through the idea of emancipation. So women are being taken out of the home, away from their families, away from their children. And of course now also the attack on the notion of womanhood, on the word itself, on the meaning of the word. The word woman is losing its meaning. You are seeing that happening. And that is the other attack. So we are also deconstructing the family. Family is gone, and why is it important to get the parents out of the picture is to have access to the children. Because these woke ideologists, they believe that they have access to knowledge that you and I do not. We are all victims of the patriarchy, and you as a white man, of course, you benefit from that, so you want to keep that going, and that's what they believe. They say, but our children, we need to tell them the real truth, and that is about the transgender agenda. And there's a deep sadness in that our children, especially in the Netherlands, have become such a big target for this, and they're also so accessible to them because in the Netherlands women work as well, so the children are sent to school all day where they are taught all these things. We have an entire week dedicated to sexual education of children as young as from 4 years old. And then because the mothers are still working after school, then they go to a daycare where they get more of this agenda. I was actually looking for a daycare for my own child at one point, and strange enough, I all of a sudden saw the Sustainable Development Goals logo on the website of the daycare. I was shocked. So needless to say, my child is with her grandmother. But the Netherlands is really shocking, and I think especially for the people of Central and Eastern Europe, if they look at what is happening in the Netherlands, they would be shocked because it has gone so far. That rainbow lobby has gone so far.
What could be the forms of resistance to these current events? Is the alternative education, the conservative one, some form of truly to resist this? I think Forum has made some good proposals regarding kindergartens, elementary schools, high schools.
No, absolutely.
Tell us a bit about that. How do you do it actually?
Yeah, of course. Well, conservatism is eventually in itself the biggest weapon we have against this agenda. That comes with a focus on traditions, on the family, on the nation. And what we as Forum for Democracy have done, because we see what's happening in the Netherlands, it's very difficult to homeschool your children in the Netherlands. It's almost not done. So everybody is state educated. So what we as Forum have decided to do is to start building our own schools. So we have started with primary schools at the moment, but of course we would like to expand that eventually to a daycare. It's just to ensure that our children are just being educated in a space that is only focused on education, not on ideology. Because we believe that it is the task of the parents to give their children those morals, those norms and standards that they want their children to have. Sexual education should come from the parents, not from the school, not from teachers. It's truly up to the parents. The only thing that we want to do is to make sure that our children can read properly, can do basic mathematics, the things that schools should focus on, which is just education. Because if you look what's happening in the Netherlands as well, I think it's nearly something like 20% of our school leavers can't read basic instructions. You know, education's going down the drain because there's such a focus all of a sudden on teaching ideology in schools, on personal development, instead of just focusing on what they should be focusing, and that is good education.
So many substance in your words and so many hope for all of us to think on all this matter. The last thing, you were talking about the multipolar world very competently, and we know that Forum for Democracy practically was made on the issue on Ukraine, Crimea, on this point. Could you, just in few words, could you give us your position on it? And in the end, we would like to ask you to give your message to Serbian public regarding all this matter.
Well, if we sort of look at what's happening in the world at the moment, you know, sort of Western hegemony is coming to an end. We've seen that Americans and NATO have been bullying the whole world for such a long time, and that this idea of a rules-based order, those rules are the American rules, and then the rest of the world has sort of just had to deal with whatever the Americans want. And I actually read something very interesting as well, and that was the idea that, you know, sort of you look at what's happening with sort of the BRICS nations, with Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So, you know, the Americans bring bombs and the Chinese build bridges. And I think that's something that we need to be very aware of. We're seeing this shift happening in the world at the moment, and we need to, and you've seen the West, of course, resist this because, you know, we're all vassal states of the United States at the moment. And it's a fight between foreign policy based on ideology and foreign policy based on geopolitics. And the West is trying to export ideology, while the BRICS nations have said no, we are just going to, you know, play this very geopolitically. And I think it is up to us to make sure that we also start playing a geopolitical game, because ideology is not going to get us anywhere in a world where China just knows how to play the game much better than us.
Exactly, I do agree. Okay, thank you so much for all this, and I would like to ask you to give your message to Serbian public regarding all this matter, and we would like, of course, to welcome you in Belgrade, you and Mr. Bode, when you can.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. We'll be happy to join you in Serbia, and all I can say to the Serbian people is, you know, stick close to your values, keep your ideas of family, of nation, be proud of that, don't say sorry for anything, don't apologize for your history, be proud of it, carry it high, and I hope to be able to give that message in Serbia itself in the future.
Dear Simone, thank you so much. Dank u wel.
Oh, sorry.